but I fear that our side has gotten the message too late that the silos are not enough, that we have to row together, that we have to, understand the seriousness of the threat that we are faced with. And if we are going to prevail against that threat, then we have to think of the big picture, not just organizational maintenance, not just what we're working for in our lane. And I think this is going to come to a head over the next 2 and 4 years, where sometimes we're going to have to think strategically about which of the many attacks coming down are the ones that will really shake up the voters and get them to understand how much they're being harmed by this.
One of the characteristics that comes through in your book is that in this country we have different liberal progressive organizations fighting for their interests. There are people who are concerned about the judiciary, others about labor, others about the environment. Whereas what you describe is a kind of unified field theory of
Yeah.
organizations all working together, these conservative groups, to the same ends, each applying, putting pedal to the metal on the accelerator about the courts, regulatory agencies that would enforce rules on clean water, toxic dumping, and all, in a sense, an underlying idea that while profits are private, costs of enforcement and regulations are shifted onto the public. Is there a unified field theory, or has it just kind of come together organically and said, hey, we all have this in common?
Yeah, thank you for that. There's definitely a unified field theory. I don't have the quote in front of me, but Charles Koch wrote in one of his books that I read, so you don't have to. But he said, I often think, he was talking about his corporation, but he does politics the same way. He says, I often think of what we do as stone masonry. The skilled mason selects a stone and places it, and then places the next stone and the next stone to make a structure that is mutually reinforcing, right? So think about that. That is what they've done. They have groups, the Federalist Society to shape the law in the courts. They have their political investing to knock out all of those moderate Republicans that still existed, into the early 2000s, gone because of the pincers action of agitating the base and having the donors put in the dark money that they were able to after Citizens United. All these the think tanks that come up with the ideas, the state policy network affiliates that move the agenda in state legislature. I could go on, but it is very much an integrated operation with the division of labor. And of course, they have some differences among them, or there's, scrambling like there is on our side. But I fear that our side has gotten the message too late that the silos are not enough, that we have to row together, that we have to, understand the seriousness of the threat that we are faced with. And if we are going to prevail against that threat, then we have to think of the big picture, not just organizational maintenance, not just what we're working for in our lane. And I think this is going to come to a head over the next 2 and 4 years, where sometimes we're going to have to think strategically about which of the many attacks coming down are the ones that will really shake up the voters and get them to understand how much they're being harmed by this. And not everything they do will have that same effect.
Instead of a fire hose.
Exactly. I mean, what they're trying, there was an article yesterday, I think it was the Washington Post, maybe the Times. I'm embarrassed, I'm still get the Washington Post. But anyway, it was all about, and Steve Bannon was talking about, they cleaned up his quote about flood the zone with shit and just made it flood the zone. But he said, as you used the phrase before, pedal to the metal, no brakes, no stop, pedal, just keep hitting them on every front. And it is very much the military doctrine of shock and awe. What they're trying to do is hit so hard in so many ways that in that military doctrine, we would be paralyzed. We would be so shocked. We would think we had no power. But we will get to that. They are already having trouble in moving that agenda. So it shows that if we are paying attention, doing what we need to, we can hold this up. We can slow it down. We may be able to get to the midterms in 2026 if we do our cards right. But ultimately, we will have to deal with this huge threat of these arch right, multi-billionaires, some of the richest men in the world who are trying to sink our only way of protecting ourselves from them, which is democracy, however flawed, wherever it exists.